going to liken what's actually happening right now with FedNow, the CBDCs, the SDR, and the universal money like Unicoin to the story of how to catch a wild hog. So one day you put the food out in the middle, and we could call that money. We give the people the public money, and the hogs come and they eat. You let them do that. You do that every day for a week, and then the next week you put out one side of the corral, just one little fence. Now they stay away for a day or so because they're not used to that fence, but the food is still there and they want it. So they go and they start eating it. Now they're comfortable with that fence. So one day you put up the second side of that corral. And at first, again, the wild hogs stay away from it for just a minute, but they don't see any other activity and the food is there and they want it. So they go in and they eat it. And you put up the third rail. Well, they've kind of experienced this before and nothing happened. So yeah, they get lulled into this false sense of security and they go in and they're eating. And as they're eating, you put up that fourth side and boom, you have them. In this video, I'll show you who's putting up the fences and quite simply how not to be the wild hog tracked. Coming up. I'm Lynette Zang, Chief Market Analyst here at ITM Trading, a full-service physical gold and silver dealer specializing in custom strategies so you do not get caught like a wild hog. And somebody brought up in the Q&A recently about the Unicoin. And had I heard about the Unicoin that was announced between the IMF and the World Bank at the spring 2023 meeting? And admittedly, I had not heard, but I really always appreciate it when people bring things to my attention because at the minimum, I do look at them. And then if there's something to talk about, we're going to talk about it. And that's what we're doing today. So this was announced back in April of 2023. And I thought, how come I haven't heard about the Unicoin? So I went in and looked. But in June, well, we had the head of the IMF come out and say, we are working hard on a global CBDC platform concept. So it kind of seems to tie in. And we've looked at it before. And I've always said the SDR made the most sense because it's made up of all different currencies and they could put every single currency in it, making it easy to have a local currency and a universal currency. We are working on a principle of interoperability, she said. Such concept would involve a shared infrastructure that would avoid the emergence of settlement blocks, which is the last thing we want to avoid further economic fragmentation. So let me explain what they're talking about here. Because what she's saying is that, what have we been hearing? We've been hearing about the breakdown of globalization, right? Now, in the 80s, that's when that big globalization push started. I remember thinking to myself, because I was a new stockbroker then, yeah, I can see some problems with this. And of course, with the supply chains breaking down, etc., we saw the problems with it. So now what we're told is that globalization is breaking apart. But I've also shown you in the past where for all the talk of the globalization breakdown, we've got the financial system that is getting even more and more globalized. And that's what she's talking about here. Those settlement blocks would be just that group of currencies. So when you're looking at what the BRICS nations are doing, where they're agreeing to settle trade in each other's currencies, that's what she wants to avoid. So what they're trying to do is come up with a universal currency that everybody will use. And the IMF, well, let's see we'll just get into this a little bit more and we'll see where this goes. This is really quite interesting. I could not find, I misspelled. But anyway, I could not find any direct references to the unicorn in the IMF or at the World Bank. So that sent me down this rabbit hole. I've included those links so you can see for yourself. But in the 1960s, so this is from the white paper from the Unicoin. In the 1960s, the United States did not have enough gold to cover the dollars in circulation outside the United States, leading to fears of a run that could wipe out U.S. gold reserves. Let's talk about this statement for a minute, because there are a few things that really stand out to me. Number one, they're referencing a period of time when we were in flux, shifting from at least a quasi-gold standard to a debt-based standard. And when they say that there was not enough gold to cover the dollars in circulation, what actually was happening was that gold was fixed at $35 to an ounce. That was the Bretton Woods Agreement back in the 40s. But the U.S., in attempting to fund the Vietnam War and the other wars that were going on, but primarily in this case, the Vietnam War, they were printing more dollars, and so they were not staying true. They were breaking the agreement that was agreed to in Bretton Woods. When you hear somebody say, well, there's not enough gold to cover a currency, that's garbage, because what needs to happen is the price of that currency, the price of gold in terms of that currency, needs to be adjusted. The whole point of gold in creating fiscal responsibility is that it is finite, not infinite, like the printing presses, which are completely infinite, right? I mean, they can do much of that as they want. So that's the first thing I needed to talk about in here. The world has learned the economic strains of the foreign floating exchange rate system. And we have talked about that too, because the Bretton Woods system pegged all global currencies to the dollar at $35 an ounce to gold. So after they reneged on that, we went to a floating rate system. And that's why I just recently did a video on how do you value a fiat money. And that's the way that you look at it. The floating rate system would be the US dollar against, say, the Japanese yen, or the US dollar against any other currency, or any currency against another currency. None of it really reflects purchasing power loss. Absent a monetary policy to the foundational international monetary system, completing the money system with a monetary commodity that could sustainably mitigate against local currency depreciation and inflation, like gold, has been periodically adopted. So what they're attempting to do is create a derivative of gold, which is exactly what this is, right? Except this has inflation baked into it. Let's move on. This is the Unicoin. I'd like you to notice the color of it. We'll come back to that. Enter DCMA, which is a world leader in the advocacy of digital currency innovations for monetary authorities. So what do we see happening right now? We see global governments creating all of these regulations around cryptocurrencies and digital currencies. Brilliant to come out with one that is designed specifically for monetary authorities. It will be under a different set of rules. Digital Currency Monetary Authority. Okay. Our mission, so their mission, is to enable trade globalization through the monetary integration of international payments and settlements. That makes things so easy. It says on here, okay, I mean, this is really what these are about. It says Digital Currency Monetary Authority and Universal Monetary Unit. And then it says on both sides, Unicoin. So really what I want you to understand is always, I don't care which currency system you're looking for, only gold has maintained and holds all of the pieces that you need to have a good money system.